Pero voy a empezar eso. Vale, estamos grabando. We are recording. Y muy buenos días y
Buenos días.
bienvenidas. I can only say bienvenidas, but for anybody who's watching, I'll say bienvenidos too.
Yes.
We're going to start to wade into the weeds of the wonder of gender. And, I could, according to the old school, bienvenidos is supposed to be a greeting for everybody. Bienvenidos is welcome. And it includes both males and females. But if I only see women on the screen, my general reaction is say bienvenidas, because that's one. But interestingly enough, even though, now, hoy en día, nowadays, as we get into gender neutral stuff, which Spanish kind of doesn't officially have. And the Real Academia Española has even kind of, as they always do, the first time an idea is proposed, the old gray-haired men who determine this automatically say, "Que mala idea, what a bad idea, we're not doing this," and they throw it out immediately. And then once practice starts to kick that in the behind a little bit, they have to change. I do notice, even though bienvenidos is for everybody, a lot of videos where they greet people, they do both genders to be gender friendly. Oh yeah, so they'll greet people with a bienvenidos, bienvenidas. Almost always, it's become a courtesy thing, whereas in the time when I learned, it was like, well, if it's a mixed male and female group, just use the masculine, bienvenidos, it's good. And that's still officially the rule, but you can kind of tell, or at least I can tell from the way people talk, that they're trying to accommodate all genders. Oh, life changes. Isn't it confusing and wonderful? Okay. Bueno, vamos a empezar. We're going to begin. I'm going to begin with a little caveat, even for people who are watching later. And this is something for you to don't do it now, because if you do it now, it will stir up the gremlins in the internet. But later, después, más tarde, later, after class is all done, do one, or maybe if you're an Apple person, two things for me. Number one will be, after class is all over with, check and make sure just in your general Zoom screen that you are updated and have the latest update of Zoom. I think that is why our breakout thing, with me trying to show you the screens, did not work. People told me if everybody is not updated to the latest update of Zoom, it will not work. So that is for everybody. The thing that is just for Apple people is that there have been Apple software updates. So if you are on, and they are biggies. I do not have Apple products anymore. I used to have an iPhone, now I'm on Android. But if you are on an Apple computer, an Apple tablet, if you use a phone for this, any Apple product, upgrade that puppy. Upgrade your software to the latest and greatest, because they have had major changes, and it will affect detrimentally performance of all the gremlins of the internet if you do not update. Okay. Bueno, ¿qué vamos a hacer? What are we going to do today? We're going to take any questions that you have. We're going to practice a few more sounds out of that screen. So I'm going to show you what to have handy. I will ask you to, here's my share screen. Make sure you have this screen that had all that pronunciation. Either if you use two screens, like a Zoom and an extra screen, either pull it up on your computer so you have both screens up at the same time, or if you printed it out, because some people really just prefer to manipulate the paper, then pull up your print version.
Is that a page in the book or not?
It is not a page in the book. It is my book. I am
Okay.
going to pick
Okay.
up my, as a matter of fact, let me do this right now. Make sure your chat box is turned on.
Yes.
In the chat box, you will see that link will get you to the pronunciation page. So you can click on the link in the chat box. And if you don't have the chat box opened, do so.
Okay. And then we can print it out.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So pick that out. Some people prefer never to print stuff out. A mí no me importa. I really don't care. You know, and they just pull up 2 screens. Some people say, oh my God, I cannot deal with pulling up 2 screens. It's like, oh my gosh, okay. I can already see from some of your little icons that some of you have done that. Ooh, ustedes son muy listos. You guys are really smart. Okay, so find that, pull it out, print it up extra in the next few minutes. What we are going to do is we're not going to review the vowel sounds because you're going to be using those constantly anyway. So you will be reviewing them, you will be hearing them. But we're going to move on to some more complicated things, in particular, the HJ, double L, N sounds. The sounds that are not like English, that you are like, whoa, they do that for those letters. Okay, the ones that are hard, the ones that are confusing, the ones that you will try to use it in English and it will sound wrong because it's not the way they pronounce it. Yeah, that kind of thing. So we're going to focus on about maybe 5 different sounds today. If you did not,
Marilyn,
see,
that page in one of your emails?
yes, it is. It was on the recap email as the pronunciation page. And let me.
I found it.
You found it. Okay, good. I want to make sure everybody's got their stuff.
This is so funny. Can you hear me? It's Susan.
Yeah,
When I go to print this, it's like blank. So I took a picture of it. But,
oh, okay. That's fine. That works too.
I wonder why. I don't know.
It might, this is off of Google Documents. It might be reformatting itself. If you're
Page 101.
not sure. I'll try to send you a different print of that, Susan, after class.
Okay, and can I ask just a procedure
Sí.
question? So when I went through the lessons and I wanted to listen to the speakers pronounce everything, you sent a long thing that maybe had 30 links.
It's tedious, I know. Yes.
I know, but I couldn't identify like what the next link was. They weren't ever numbered like one. Like
no, they don't have numbers on them. They don't. And I'm going to try to show you a different page, which I think will work.
Okay.
So thank you for asking that, Susan.
Okay.
Muchísimas gracias. Thank you very, very much. I will do that after I show you these 2
That's fine.
quick things. Okay, vale, magnifico. If you did not yet listen to Super Holly, if you skipped that because you didn't have time, and it's long, it's 19 minutes. That's why I don't play it during class. She has a truly, truly excellent thing where she goes through every sound in Spanish, what sounds all the letters are. I would take that, I would bookmark it because it is super, super great. So if you did not get time to do that, please make sure you do so. I'm going to send you a new video in the email for this week with this young man, which, oops, perdón, he will look like this en la camisa roja, in the red shirt. This is going to be a video that talks just about how to trill your R's, or as they say, roll your R's. And I will, he does a way better job of this than I think anybody I have ever listened to, because he talks about like what you do with the things in your mouth, what you do with your tongue, what you do with pushing air across your tongue to trill your R's. So if you find that challenging, because many English speakers do, watch the link. I will send in the recap email about how to trill your R's with this gentleman, because he does a super great explanation, which we won't do today, but I'll ask you to check that out so that you can sort of play with it on your own time. Please also know that when we get to the R, because we won't get to the R today, the trilling your R thing is not a make it or break it kind of thing. A lot of people are intimidated by that. And please don't be, because there are people who never learned to trill a R their whole life, but they are still understood by everybody. I mean, it is very helpful. It is ideal to be able to trill your R. It may take you quite a bit of practice to learn to do that. So don't be put off if you find that difficult at first. Try again, all of that. I am going to address Susan's question next, which is that whole thing about, unfortunately, the publishing company that does our book has made a recent change. And it is not a happy one. And that is that the way I told you to go in and download it, I think is not working quite the way it used to be, because I think in an effort to make more money, or just because they're publishing something new, I don't know what, they have kind of changed how to find that. So Susan, this goes to your question. And I had to wade through, oh my goodness. I had to wade through, and I will have to wade through it again. The FAQ page is like incredibly long. But what you have to do is, instead of just hitting support tab, like I had told you to, and I'll put this on so you know what I'm talking about. It used to be able to hit the support tab, and it would take you right into the ways to download. And it does not do that anymore, because they have taken some of that offline and put it elsewhere. And they have put it into something called Language Lab. So I'm going to find that link, but I don't believe, Susan, they will have numbers on them. So you will just have to sequentially go from one audio file to the next.
Right. I'd be on like 19, and so then I'd have to go back to the screen to find 20, and I'd hit 17, and
it would be helpful. Yeah. So
okay.
I will find the exact page, because it's related to this, but it's going to say Language Lab, and there are other things in between, which is why I can't find it immediately right now. But anyway, in any event, I will send you that. And all you need for right now is that list of audio that I sent via the last email, and that will get you through several chapters. Okay, so I hope we've got that kind of out of the way, because it is important to listen to the audio as you read through the book. That really, really helps people, because you're using both your listening and your vision, and using two senses at once is way better. Okay. Lo que voy a hacer, what I'm going to start with before we start our pronunciación, and we'll come back to this a bit. I hope all of you watched this video with this couple about introductions, but I wanted to ask if you had any questions about what they showed you with greeting people, or what they talked about. They gave you a lot of phrases, and those you'll pick them up as you get more comfortable with them, as you read more through and review that chapter 1. There are many, many ways to greet people, tons. There's no way you can put everything into a book or a video, but one thing they hit on a lot in this video was the differences between formal and informal. And in the Spanish language, that is a big deal. There are on 2 levels. One of those things we're going to talk about today. One of those levels is some greetings are just more slang-like, are things that young people, younger than any of us on this screen, tend to use with each other, you know? So if 2 20-somethings are meeting on the street, or teenagers, they're never going to go launch into real formal greetings unless they're like dressed up at a wedding or something, you know, a formal occasion. They're not going to. So, you know, informal greetings might be extremely informal. Like, well, you know, ¿qué tal is pretty informal. ¿Qué tal? How are you doing? ¿Qué tal? Right? But ¿qué tal, even though it's informal, is appropriate in many settings. Whereas if you say to somebody the much more slang, ¿qué onda? ¿Qué onda? Which means what wave. It's like, what the heck? What wave? ¿Qué onda? ¿Qué onda is used with loads and loads between young people all the time. Or ¿qué hubo? Some of my friends who are from Colombia, ¿qué hubo? Super informal. And so kind of slangy greetings, super slang greetings might not be appropriate in, let's say, a business setting, or in a doctor's office, or, you know, a setting like that, that is much more formal. And the other thing which we're going to talk about today is the issue of formal and informal when we talk about the words for you. This many words for you, this many, but thankfully you only need to really learn this many to speak with people from Latin America. So we'll get back to that and practice that a bit as part of our work today. Today I want to try to cover lots of territory, a little bit more with pronunciation, a little bit more with greetings and identifying yourself, learning how to identify yourself, because one of your homework things will be to bring in a picture or representation of somebody and introduce somebody for next week. So we're going to kind of go over all of that more. No questions about that video? They have, okay, vale. Never hurts to watch those more than once, because it's loaded and loaded and loaded with information. Okay. Let's start with our pronunciación. Right now, you know that you're going to get 2 more pronunciation videos to watch, but we're going to check this out. And I'm going to go through this, or, you know, you may want to watch on the screen. You may want to look at your page, whatever. We're only going to look very, very briefly. I'm going to let you kind of practice on your own the che and the de. We're going to look at more in depth the letters after that. We're only going to look at che very, very, very informally, because che sounds like our English CH. Che, and this used to be a separate letter. It is no longer considered a separate letter, but it used to be for a long time. When I first learned Spanish, it was a separate letter. Dictionaries would have this listed as a separate entry. Che will sound like the English, so that's why we're not going to spend a ton of time on it, but it'll sound like che. It's the only way that H gets pronounced. This is the only way the letter H is pronounced, is if it's a combination of CH, okay? So it's the only way you will not ignore the H. Otherwise, you're going to ignore it. And we'll see that in just a little bit. So che will sound like you expect. So there'll be words like, and we're just going to look at these together. You can repetir. You can repeat these if you like. Okay, because we're going to do these real fast. They're going to come to you like that. Chico, chico,
Chico.
Chico.
chico. And you're going to be reviewing all those vowel sounds all the time. Chocolate.
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 Chocolate. Muy bien. Mucho.
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 We use that word a lot. You're going to hear mucho a gazillion times in any typical conversation. Here's a word that we have, but it can't be pronounced rancho because that sounds muy gringo. Rancho, rancho,
Rancho.
Rancho.
rancho. Che is like,
Rancho.
yeah, like you expect. Chiste.
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 Chiste is one of the words that we use for joke. And, ooh, the thing you chew, chicle.
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 Chicle, chicle. There used to
Chicle,
be an old
chicle.
brand. I don't know if it still exists. Chiclets. Wow. Anybody old enough to remember Chiclets gum?
I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, those little cubes.
See.
Yeah. Chicle, chicle, chicle gum. Okay. So what you expect. D will often sound like the English D often, but it won't be as D, you know, it's softer. It's softer. So when D has like a consonant, not A-E-I-O-U, but a consonant after it, you'll hear it, but it'll be a little softer than English. So they'll sound like this. These aren't going to be hard. These next ones here with the D, la letra D, the letter D. Donde,
Donde.
Donde.
donde. Drama,
Drama.
Drama.
drama. Cuando,
Cuando.
Cuando.
grande,
Grande.
Grande.
dentro.
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 Okay.
Dentro.
The thing about de, and it is kind of a different sound that de sometimes make, but not all the time. If D is in between two vowels, if it's got a vowel before it and a vowel after it, or if it's the very last, letter of a word, it will really sound like the. It'll sound like the TH, and it really will. So if you hear people making a th sound, there are two reasons. It's either a D or they're doing the Spain thing of the which, you know, we'll talk about much later. Okay, so here is a D that is going to, and the very first word is a word you hear a lot. This word literally means truth, but if people ask it as a question, they're kind of asking it to affirm. Is that right? So as a question, this word means, is that right? But as a noun, it means truth. And you're going to hear the first D, but the last one will be a th, verdad.
Verdad.
Verdad. Verdad.
Verdad.
Verdad.
Verdad.
Okay. The next word means each or every. You hear that word quite a lot. And this is going to sound like a straight out TH. Cada.
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 Right. It won't sound like cada. It won't sound like cada. No. Cada.
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 Cada. Okay. The next word means I can. Puedo.
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 The D should sound like a th. Puedo.
Puedo.
Puedo. And the very last one is libertad.
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 Libertad. Libertad. Freedom.
Libertad.
Libertad. Okay.
Libertad.
Now, a lot of people ask, and I'm going to lay the stress right away. If you pronounce that last word, libertad, as libertad, will somebody understand you? Well, they will, but you're going to sound, it's an accent. It's a gringo thing, yeah? So, yeah, they'll notice that you're maybe not giving it the you know, treatment it should have with libertad, but will they understand what you mean? Yes. So there are mistakes we sometimes make where people say, oh, that sounds kind of like a heavy accent, you know, like Arnold Schwarzenegger speaking English, yeah.
Mhm.
But so they'll understand you perfectly well, but you know, it will sound heavily accented. I'm just saying, will they know that you're saying a particular word? Yeah, they probably will. Okay, we're going to move on to the pronunciation sounds. These are letters that do things you don't expect. Some of these letters, even, I will go as far as to say, as you have to fight pretty hard to practice these next letters, because your English brain will want to do something that is very wrong in Spanish. And your English brain will, just as a reflex, say a sound that is incorrect for Spanish. So Let's look at this. H. H is the name of that letter. H, H, H. H, unless it's a CH, H in every other situation makes no sound whatsoever. It is the only consistently true silent letter in Spanish. So when you see an H printed, ignore it. This is a word that little kids learning to spell, they're sitting in a class, third grade, first grade, second grade class in Mexico, La Ciudad de Mexico, DF. They're sitting there doing their spelling test in school, and they get these words wrong on their spelling test because they don't hear it. Because it's silent. It's a silent letter. Like through, THROUGH. What the heck happens in English to the GH? It's silent, through. This H is silent. So look at it, but ignore it. So we're going to practice these together. Oi,
Oi.
Hoy.
oi. We never
Oi.
pronounce this hoy. There is no h for H. It's oi. Oi.
Hoy.
The next word is very important. You're going to see this a lot in homework over the next week. I.
Ay.
I is a verb by itself, and it's a super important verb. And it talks about what exists, what is like in your area, in your environment. We use this verb a lot. So get
I.
used to that word I. The
Ay.
next one is one that poor Donald Trump cannot pronounce correctly. Hombre.
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 Unfortunately, the Hollywood has destroyed Americans' ability to say this word correctly because old movies about the Old West, all the actors mispronounce this all the time, which is why Americans mispronounce this word. And then they're saying something that doesn't mean that at all. And it's like, people look at you, what? Yeah. Hombre, man, hombre. Okay. Here's a
Hombre.
word. We have the same word, the next one. We pronounce our emphasis on it is different, but it means the same thing. Honor.
Honor.
Honor. Yeah, we punch the second O harder in Spanish. Honor. Perfecto.
Honor.
The next one is going to be tough. This is a place. It's a geographic place. It's a building. And it's got an H in the middle. And let me tell you, the H in the middle is where it really flubs you up. It trips you up. You have to ignore that H in the middle. And besides, people say Alhambra. There's a place in California. No, it's not Alhambra. That sounds bad. Alhambra.
Alhambra.
It's a great big beautiful marsh plant, or it's a city in California, whichever. Here is the one that people, this is not hombre, this is hambre.
Hambre.
The Old West movies say, well, bad hombres. Oh, that is really awful because that makes no sense to somebody who speaks Spanish. It makes no sense. It's like, what the heck are you saying? Hambre means hunger. Hambre we use with a special verb. Tengo hambre means I'm hungry. It literally means I have hunger. Tengo hambre. I'm hungry. Tengo hambre. Hunger. And the next one is one we used in some of our goodbyes. When you say goodbye to people, hasta. Hasta means literally until. So when you say hasta mañana, you're saying until tomorrow, right? But we say see you tomorrow. They say until tomorrow. Hasta mañana, hasta luego. Hasta pronto, see you soon, right? Hasta, until. And the next one is going to be an H hiding in the middle. So this one is going to try to trip you up. It's the word for pillow. Almohada. Right? I've tried to pick some, a lot of words start with an H, and it's easy to ignore it's easier to ignore the H when it leads off the word. Harder to ignore the H when it's in the middle, buried in the middle. And here's a really fun word. Yes, alcohol is pronounced alcohol. You drag out the alcohol.
Alcohol.
So is it 3
Alcohol.
syllables?
It is 3 syllables. Alcohol.
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 And it's really
Alcohol.
hard. Alcohol. No. Alcohol.
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 Alcohol comes from
Alcohol.
Arabic. Oh, for us, that comes from Arabic. A lot of words that start with al, like alcohol, alhambra, almohada, originally came from Arabic for historical reasons of conquest and blood and warfare. Spain being inhabited by various Arabic tribes for many hundreds of years. So many things came from Arabic into Spanish. Okay, so H, ignore it, silent. The next one is Jota. Jota is a J, is the J. Jota, J, that's the name for J, Jota.
Horta.
It sounds like, it does sound like what you think should be an English H, but it's throaty. So the sound comes more from here.
Jota.
Oh,
Ha, 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 ha.
Jota.
The big
Jota.
phlegm wad coming up.
I.
Yeah.
Oh,
Ha. So it will sound like ha. If you can't get the ha, if you can't get the throaty thing, a plain old, really strong ha, at least you'll be understood. Okay, but do try to work through a throaty H. So
Jota.
let's try these words. Yeah, jota. We're going to try the first word, which means eye, and it's also something people shout out sometimes to say, watch out. Ojo,
Ojo.
Ojo.
ojo, bien, ojo.
Ojo.
Next, we got the word for ham, jamón.
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 Perfecto. Next, we have the word for soap, jabón,
Jabón.
Jabón.
jabón,
Jabón.
jabón. Next, we have the word for if somebody is short in height, they're not a tall person, they're a short person. We use this word bajo,
Bajo.
Bajo.
bajo,
Bajo.
bajo. And next is hard because the h comes at the end. This thing here,
Reloj.
reloj,
Reloj.
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 Reloj can be a watch, it
Reloj.
can mean a clock on the wall, either way. The next is a very, very common word. This word means better, mejor,
Mejor.
Mejor. Mejor.
mejor.
Mejor.
Muy bien, mejor. Next is the word for the day of the week, Thursday, jueves,
Jueves.
Jueves.
jueves, jueves.
Jueves.
Every time you see a J, the h should come out. And
Do they
next is
not
the,
capitalize it?
Jueves.
perdón?
Do they not capitalize the days? of the
No,
week?
generally not. You do find, my friend from Chile, she and her family, sometimes I find they capitalize it when they write it. This is something that sometimes starts to bleed through from English into Spanish, but properly, according to the rules, you are not supposed to capitalize days of the week. Regionally, there are times when people capitalize it, okay? But not often. Technically, you're not supposed to ever. I mean, unless it's the first word of a sentence, then yes. So, jueves, Thursday. Next is the word for woman, mujer, mujer,
Mujer.
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 And next is a very, very fun word. It's a word we use a lot. It's a word we
Trabajar.
talk about people
Trabajar.
working. Trabajar.
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 Trabajar. And notice there are two words in
Trabajar.
English that convey that
Trabajar.
definition.
Trabajar.
Yeah, trabajar does not tell you who's working. It's just the baseline verb. Okay, so in English, to express that idea of trabajar, we need two words in English, to work. And notice it does not tell you who's doing it. It just says that's the action, trabajar, to work. Okay, so jota,
Trabajar.
ja, 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 ja. Okay.
Trabajar.
Next, we have this Ellie here, this double L, which again used to be, but is no more, used to be a separate letter. And here, there are slight slight variations in how you may hear people pronounce this letter, depending on the region. You can, and there's a gradation of pronunciations with the Ellie that they are acceptable. So pick what works for you and pick maybe where you think you might be traveling. You know, if you're in Mexico, if you're in Mexico, the most common will be just the Y sound of the English Y. Yeah. Okay. In many regions of Latin America, there might be a very, very, and I mean very slight j sound combined with that yeah. So that is kind of my way. But if you want to say it as a straight yeah sound, that's A-okay. There is another variation that I don't recommend you do, which is a j, really strong, but only people from Argentina use that. But you may, if you hear somebody from Buenos Aires, they will pronounce that L like ella, me llamo. Wow, and that sounds heavily accented to Spanish speakers, but they know, ooh, Argentina, yeah, there's somebody from Argentina. So let's try the y sound for this double L. You might put a little j in there before. You'll hear when you hear me. Llama.
Llama.
Okay. And not a j,
Llama.
not a strong j, a llama, okay?
Llama.
Llave.
Llave.
Llave is your key.
Llave.
Llave. Calle.
Calle.
Calle. Street.
Calle.
Pollo.
Pollo.
Chicken. Silla.
Silla.
Ya.
Chair.
Amarillo.
Amarillo.
Amarillo, the color yellow.
Talla.
Oh, and if you talk about clothing sizes, here's a common word to use. Talla.
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 Here is
Talla.
an infinitive. That means we need two words in English. It's a baseline verb. It does not tell you who's doing it, just what the action is. To cry, llorar.
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 As Halloween approaches here in the Southwest, you may hear people or see decorations about La Llorona, which is a crying woman. La Llorona, La Llorona. And here's the last word, allí.
Llora.
Allí.
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 Allí. There. Okay. So,
Allí.
so what I want to tell you with that, a straight y sound is good, a little bit of a j, but not strong. So, is okay. So, somebody from Buenos Aires would pronounce that color yellow as amarillo, amarillo. Don't give it that one, unless you're traveling to Argentina. So amarillo, amarillo, those are okay, but not amarillo. I mean, unless, like I said, you're going there. Okay. Last truly different letter is Enye. And again, separate letter. This used to be a double N in Latin. It used to be a double N. And the little squiggle over the top, that little tilde, that little squiggle line, used to be a second N that little monks in ancient medieval times wrote the second N over the top. And it will sound like the nya of onion. This one is not hard for most English people because we know onion, nya, right? That's how it will sound. So we got some words to practice with this. Cañón.
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 Perfecto.
Cañón.
Baño. Bathroom. Yeah. Daño. Daño. Yeah. Damage.
Daño.
Niño. What's the difference between a niño and a chico? Niño is a boy, usually very, very young ages, very, very little. Chico, as they get older, an older kid. Next is the word for year, año. This is a super important word, año. When you tell people how old you are, tengo 60 años. I'm 60. Tengo 65 años. Never pronounce this as ano with just an N because that means anus. That's not what you mean. That's not what you mean. You mean año. Most of
Año.
us do not talk about this sphincter of our body. So yes, that word exists. It exists, ano, but unless you're a doctor who's a proctologist, you're not going to be using that word very much. So año, just train yourself
Año.
always
Año.
año. Okay.
Año.
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 Here we go. Next is a word for tomorrow, or with la, it can mean morning. Mañana.
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 Mañana. Bien. Here's another word that also
Mañana.
talks about
Mañana.
size. Size. You know, when somebody's size is up, de qué tamaño, de qué tamaño, de qué tamaño, what size? They're very, very different sizes of things. Okay. Tamaño,
Tamaño.
Tamaño.
Tamaño, muy bien. Okay. Next is the word for pineapple, piña.
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 Piña. Next is the word for
Uña.
your fingernail, uña.
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 Uña. Uña. You're going to hear a
Uña.
word later today, una, with an N, not an N. Una is a different word completely than uña. Uña is this thing on your nail, your fingernail. Okay. And we're going to do one last thing here. When you see a QUE or a QUI, because you're going to hear this word a lot, this word que a lot. And que is a really basic word. It means what. So we're going to go through what happens when you see in reading que and ki. QUE sounds like que. And QUI is going to sound like ki. Now, the thing that's tricky sort of about this is that we had gone through last week that letter U should make the sound oo, but sometimes the oo is silent once in a while. And this is one of the situations where oo is silent. If I combine the oo in a QUE sequence or QUI sequence, we will ignore the oo. Okay, yeah, that's it. So pretend like the oo isn't there. If it's a combo, QUE, que, or if it's the combo, QUI, ki. Okay, so we're going to go through these words because a lot of them have to do with numbers or question words or things like that. So these are words that you actually kind of hear quite a lot. Okay.
Okay.
Que.
Que.
What?
Que.
Okay.
And notice it gets a little accent mark there. Don't get too torn up about accent marks. We'll talk about them at a later time. An accent mark does not affect the sound a vowel makes. It affects what syllable you give more stress to. Okay, so just think of accent marks that way. In French, an accent mark will change how a vowel sounds. In Spanish, it does not do that. So you don't have to worry about, ooh, it will sound different. No, not really. Okay, here's another word, who, underneath the word que. We have the word for who. Quien.
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 Quien. Quien.
Okay. Next, we've got the word for 15, quince.
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 Next, below that, we have a word that means not to want, but I want. Quiero.
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 Quiero. We ignore the you, but
Quiero.
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 Yo quiero café.
Quiero café. Quiero más
Quiero
café.
un
Quiero más
cappuccino.
café. Quiero un cappuccino. Quiero un café de Starbucks. Ah, sí. Okay. La segunda columna. We're going to look at the second column here. ¿Por qué?
¿Por
¿Por
qué?
qué?
¿Por qué?
We have two words to express the idea of why. ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué?
¿Por qué?
¿Por
Next
qué?
is something you will see on a menu. Queso.
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 Cheese. Yeah, queso. Queso.
Queso.
Es queso. Es
Queso.
el queso. Es el queso. Bien. Okay. Vale, magnifico. Next is the word for fifth. Not the number 5, but like fifth in line. Quinto.
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 Quinto. Bien. Okay. And next is, this is what we call a cognate. It looks like and it sounds like an English word, and it means what you think. Paquete.
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 Paquete. Paquete.
Paquete.
It sounds
Paquete.
quite a lot like package, yeah. Paquete. It didn't have the j at the end, but paquete. Paquete. Okay. And that's all we're going to do for today. So go back through that and practice it again this week. Next week, we're going to check out C and G, okay? And, I think I will send you a couple short videos. They're going to be very short on C and G. C might be pronounced two different ways, and G also might be pronounced two different ways. Most letters in Spanish only have one pronunciation sound, but C might have two. And how do you know which of the two sounds C will make? Well, the letter that comes after the C determines what sound. It'll either be a K sound or a S, like an S. For G, it'll either be a G, like you think, what we call the hard G sound, or a H sound. Oh, G might sound like G, like in English. G might make the very same sound that you did here, the H sound.
Mhm.
The letter after the G determines whether it sounds like G or H. So you'll have a couple of super short videos to watch about C and G, and we'll take a look at these next week. Bien? ¿Hay preguntas? Any questions on what we did so far with any of these letters today? ¿Hay preguntas o no? ¿No? Nada.
No.
Vale, magnífico. Muy bien, muy bien. Excelente. Bueno, vamos a... avancemos a otra cosa. Let's go on to a different thing. Okay, if you've got that screen up, you can take it on down. Bien. Okay, so many things to start with. Let's start next with, screen up here. Gotta check through my notes. What order did I want to do? Eso no. Okay. Next, we're going to go into a topic which is the many words for you. Okay. And they talked about this in the introductions video quite a bit. And we're going to talk about it. It really isn't hard to learn. So I'll send you this. Don't feel you must take lots of notes, not necessary. I will send you the link so that you can click on the link and, save it on your own computer. There are actually in Spanish this many ways. Cuatro. Hay cuatro maneras de expresar you. There are 4 ways to express you. However, those 4 ways are used in Spain. If you speak with people from Latin America, they only use these 3, okay? So we'll tell you what the number 4 one is about, but unless you go to Spain, you are not going to hear it because people in Latin America do not like to use that. You would. Okay, which word you use is, however, important, okay? For a lot of reasons, we're not going to get into the weeds, but most important from the initial standpoint of politeness. Okay, so if you want to impress people with I am a person who is not rude, I am polite, I am courteous, then you want to use the right you, okay? And if in doubt with which you is appropriate, always err on the side of politeness, of being formal. And if people think you're being too formal, they go, oh, we can be buddies. They'll signal to you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Here are the words for you. The words for you are tú, tú, tú. This has an accent mark over it, tú, because there's a different tú, also pronounced tú, without an accent mark, which means something slightly different, okay? Very slightly different. Tu means you, the person. And it is what they call the formal, excuse me, the familiar, that's wrong. The familiar, the friendly you. Tu is used when you speak to somebody on a first name basis. Anybody, so here's the rule of thumb. Anybody you call by their first name as a general habit, you'll address them with tu for you, tu. And in most, well, in many regions, tu is used for family members because again, it's the friendly, the chummy, the buddy, you, okay? To talk to little kids who are like much younger than you, you use tu. So that's when you use tu. Little kids, family, somebody you call by their first name, tu. It is the familiar, the friendly you. Okay. And it is only talking to one person. Yeah, in English, we say you, but you might be one person. You might be everybody on the screen. You could be a throng of 10,000 people who came for a concert or, you know, a soccer game, whatever, right? Okay, so tu is only one person, one you, and it's friendly. Formal is usted. Usted. And sometimes that is
Usted.
abbreviated. Yeah, usted. Usted. Oh, and you'll hear that TH, usted. Usted.
Usted.
Usted is you, but it is the formal, the polite, the courteous you. We use usted when you are speaking to somebody and you're addressing them as you, but you don't know their first name, or you would not call them by their first name. So little kids who talk to teachers, to their teacher, they use usted. Employees to their boss will generally use usted. If you walk into a store and you're talking with some guy that you're asking, you know, hey, what aisle do I find blah, blah, blah on? You don't know that guy. I know he's got a name tag that says, hi, my name is Tim. You don't know Tim. You don't know him. Usted. A clerk, usted. Anybody in a store setting, in an office setting, in a formal setting, in a business setting, use usted. Usted. Okay? Usted. But that's only one you. Again, like tu is for talking to you, to one person. Usted is for one person. We make usted plural by putting an es on the end. Ustedes.
Ustedes.
Ustedes means you, but in the sense of you guys, or all of you. In English, we have you. It's always you. It didn't used to be that way hundreds of years ago in English, but it is now, okay? So often people might say you all, y'all, you guys in English to clarify. Well, that's ustedes. So notice in Latin American Spanish, there is tu and usted for levels of formality, but for talking to more than one person saying you, it's only ustedes, and you don't worry about familiar and formal anymore with plural you, okay? You don't worry about it. Okay. By the way, you may see usted abbreviated as what you see there. UD period, that does not mean you pronounce it ud. Nobody says that. It is usted, but it's an abbreviation. They use it, it's a shorthand to make the writing shorter. That's it. Ustedes often gets a shorthand UDS period. Again, it's an abbreviation, but you pronounce it as ustedes, okay? And there's a little fun fact down there. Usted came from, usted formally became a thing, became a word because people said, oh, you know, like in medieval times, people would till the land, the farmers, and you didn't farm your own land. Who do you think you are? You belonged to some, you know, big, high, mucky lord, lady. You belonged to somebody who was like semi-royalty or low-level royalty. And people addressed the person who owned the land, that they were farmers, but they addressed them, oh, your lordship. Yeah. So it comes from that long time ago. Okay. Ooh, and let me back up. Vosotros. I'm just only going to tell you what that means. There is a fourth U. The fourth U, which is only used in Spain and no place else, is called vosotros. Vosotros. Vosotros means you guys, but it's the plural of tú. So if you walk into a bar and all your buddies are there and you say, hey, you guys, it's vosotros in Spain. But if you walk into a bar to watch a soccer game with all your buddies and you're in Mexico and you say, hey, you guys, it will not be vosotros, it will be ustedes.
Ustedes.
Okay, so
Ustedes.
vosotros, you will hear referenced from time to time, but people don't use it in Latin America. Okay, which you would be appropriate if we look at these different people? We look at this picture of a teacher. Which you would be appropriate to talk to that person?
Usted.
Usted. Sí. Which you for a couple of guys who live next door to each other?
Two.
Two.
Two, probably. Yeah, they're the same age. Yeah, they're probably okay. And wait, what if a teacher's talking to all the kids in the classroom? How will she say you guys?
Ustedes.
Ustedes.
Ustedes, okay? Ustedes. Bien, fantástico. Oh, you're getting checked out in the store. ¿Cuál? Which one?
Usted.
Usted, yeah, generally to talk to people who are helping you in a business establishment, usted is more appropriate. Oh, what about grandma talking to grandkid talking to grandma?
Two.
Probably two. I will tell you, in some countries, like in Colombia, you will hear people using usted with family members. So sometimes that's a thing, but tú generally with family. Okay, you talk to a bunch of little kids.
Ustedes.
Ustedes, because it's more than one of them. Yeah, because it's more than one of them. Oh, these people are dressed very, very all dressed up. ¿Cuál?
Usted.
They're talking to
Ustedes.
this guy. This guy
Usted.
is
Usted.
usted, but here he's
Ustedes.
ustedes. Bien, fantástico. You're talking to this little girl, la chiquita, la niña.
Two.
Two.
Yeah, tú. Little kids expect adults to talk with them with tú. Okay. You're meeting the Queen of England.
Usted.
Usted. Wow. Yeah, that is the most formal of formal, is it not?
Ustedes.
Yeah.
Ustedes.
Probably, yeah, ustedes
Vosotros.
here.
Ustedes.
This one with the people cheering, if you're in Spain, that'll be vosotros, but if you're in Latin America, that's going to be
Ustedes.
ustedes. Okay, so again, vosotros is only used if you're in Spain, okay?
But it says solo en España.
So yeah,
Yeah.
It does say that. And
That's why I
wanna-
said vosotros.
yeah, that's right. I'm going to take that out for future because that really depends. Yeah, no, yeah. And you know, even yeah, in España, in Spain, it's even going to depend. Like in a business setting, kind of depends on how well you know each other. You know, if you're coming in to give a sales pitch, you're probably going to be ustedes, but yeah, depende. It really does depend. Okay, bien. So you will notice with the greetings. And the reason I introduced tú and usted and ustedes right away is because anytime we talk in a full sentence, the verb will always get a little different form depending on if you're talking to somebody with tú or with usted or with ustedes, okay? And you're going to start to see this play out over and over and over again. So how are you? I'm going to put this on to show you a difference between the different yous and how it starts to affect the way we even say things as simple as how are you? How are you in English is, wow, it's that. But if I'm speaking in Spanish with somebody, that may translate as, with somebody you talk to on a first name basis, it'll be ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo estás? And you hear a s, an S at the end of it, estás. That's
Como
important.
estás?
¿Cómo estás? That's
¿Cómo estás?
friendly. How are ya? Right? Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Punctuation is the worst thing to get with. Okay. But if you're talking to somebody and you don't really know them on a first name basis, it'll be ¿Cómo está?
¿Cómo está?
¿Cómo está? No S at the end. ¿Cómo está? You may
¿Cómo
hear
está?
that, and that is the formal.
Okay.
How are you? And I won't say yeah. How are you? How are you? You may hear that as, and I'm going to put it in parentheses, not because because people may leave that word in. ¿Cómo está usted? ¿Cómo está usted? They may leave the word usted in there, and I'll spell it out so you understand how to pronounce it better. They may leave, ¿Cómo está usted? They may leave it in there. Or if they're looking you straight in the eye, they may never say the word usted. They may just say, ¿Cómo está? And ¿Cómo está? If they're looking at, ¿Cómo está? Well, I'm looking at you. You know I'm talking to you, right? They may leave out the word usted. Don't be surprised if people leave that word out. People could say, ¿Cómo estás tú? But they won't most of the time. They may if they want to be kind of, oh, okay, here's how it is. ¿Cómo estás tú? It's like saying, how are you? And in English, we say, how are you? We use our voice, but in Spanish, I'll say that by using the word tú. ¿Cómo estás tú? But most of the time, they'll leave off the word tú. ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo está? How are you? Here's yet a different way to say, how are you? ¿Cómo están? How are you guys? How are you all? Yeah, okay. So they may leave off the ustedes. ¿Cómo están ustedes? They may put the ustedes in. They may leave the ustedes off. ¿Cómo están? But notice it's different. ¿Cómo estás? Gets an S at the end for friendly. ¿Cómo está? Just has the ah sound at the end. If I'm asking a bunch of you, ¿Cómo están? And n at the end.
¿Cómo
So
están?
that those words you see, estás, está, están, are what we call verbs. They are the word are, A-R-E. And even though in English it's always are, in Spanish it will be different forms of this same idea of are. So depending on who you're talking to, that's why there are so many different forms. And this is going to happen eventually with all things that we call verbs. Verbs generally tell us an action that is going on. And in Spanish, the verb tells you not only an action, but it tells you who is doing the action as well. Okay, so para que sepan, just so you guys know, that is why it's important for us to know the idea of you and you taking on different forms. Bien? Okay. So you're going to see that reflected over and over, many, many, many different ways. ¿Hay alguna pregunta? Is there any kind of question about that thing of the different yous? ¿Sí o no?
No.
No, okay. No. Okay. Vale, magnifico. We're going to move on to a new idea, sometimes we talk about, we're going to move on to the idea that was in, that is in chapter 2. Did any of you read chapter 2 yet?
Yes.
Yes.
Most of you did.
Mhm.
Did everyone, or did anybody not read it? Okay. Okay. Bien. Oh, well, see. This will be old stuff for you. Okay. Vale, magnifico. One of the things that they talk about in chapter 2 is this idea of nouns. Nouns are the names of people, places, or things. And they start to introduce the idea that nouns might be one thing, might be more than one thing. They might be singular or plural. And nouns in Spanish will also be feminine and masculine. So we're going to hit on this idea of singular and plural, one, and I don't know, a bunch, right? And how we talk about that with things or people, what we call nouns. And this idea of masculine and feminine a little bit. And we're going to watch a very short video because she does a great job of this. And I will give you the link to this so that if you want to watch it again to refresh your memory, you will be able to do that. So in the recap, you're going to get this video again. But she does a great little presentation about how we make nouns plural. How do you go from pen, you know, one of these, to pens? How do you go from paper to papers? Okay, making things plural is an important idea. And she's going to, I think she has a little quiz with her husband. And sometimes he struggles. And sometimes you will feel like you're struggling. Sometimes it will be easy. Aquí vamos, here we go. Oh, wait a minute, I no quiero eso. I do not want that, hang on. A ver. Here it comes. Aquí viene.
Today in lesson number 3, we'll talk about how to form plurals in Spanish. But wait, what is a plural? It means more than one. We will start with a very quick explanation and then we'll move on to some practice. Let's get started.
Make it louder.
Remember we use masculine.
Louder? Okay. Vale, magnifico. She tends to speak kind of softly. Her earlier videos, she always had at a very, very soft level. Ooh. And YouTube is never consistent. They either make you a deaf person or it is so soft that you can't. And there's no way to predict.
El and feminine la to say the. These words also have plurals. If the word is masculine, el will become los.
And she's going to combine the idea of plurals with this idea of gender too. So, okay. The other little preface I'm going to give you is that not only are people masculine and feminine, well, that part's easy, but things, all things are masculine or feminine. We don't do that in English. Okay. You know, book is book, but in Spanish, book is masculine, el libro, right? And in Spanish, cup, taza, is feminine. It just is. So kind of a hard thing to get used to is that. So she's going to kind of blend this idea of masculine and feminine and plurals.
And if the word is feminine, la will become las. The same thing applies to un and una. Un becomes unos and una becomes unas. This is very important. If the article is plural, the word will be plural. And if the word is plural, the article will be plural. Like the word el perro will become los perros.
So that's, yeah, el perro, a doggy, right? If we want to make it the dogs, it's los perros. And, oh, what? Perro, perros. Oh, it's only an S at the end. Well, that's like English. Yay. But it won't be el perros. It'll be los perros, right? The word for the is el, or la, feminine, or los, more than one, or las. Yeah. And Spanish will often be like a jigsaw puzzle. All the pieces have to fit together and make nice with each other. They have to interlock. This is agreement. Okay,
Voila.
agreement. If a thing is masculine, all the words that talk about that thing have to be masculine. Okay, so you're going to start to see this play out.
Now let's learn the 3 most important things you need to know when learning how to form plurals in Spanish. Number 1. To most words in Spanish you will add an S to make it plural, like in la llave, las llaves, la casa, las casas.
So, wow, this one's kind of a no-brainer, isn't it? Right? Yeah. Llaves, keys, casas, houses. Yeah. Okay. Not too hard so far.
El niño, los niños.
Los niños.
Los niños.
If the word finishes in a consonant, add ES.
Oh, if the last letter of the thing, whatever that thing is, if the
Comma.
last letter is a consonant, meaning not A-E-I-O-U. Any other letter, if the last letter of the word is a consonant, instead of adding S, you add ES. Still not too hard, right? Okay.
Like in la mujer, las mujeres.
Las mujeres.
So you see, this is not an A-E-I-O-U, this is an R, so it's got to be not mujeres. You can't do that. Mujeres, mujeres. E-S or E-S. Well, there's still a lot of similarities with English here, so this is not too tough. Okay.
El
But
corazón,
Nicola,
los
Oh, perdón, sí, pregunta.
Corazón.
if the word ends in,
Corazones.
how do you know it's a male or female?
We'll talk about that in a bit. Sometimes you just have to memorize it. Sometimes the spelling of the word, the spelling on the end will give you a clue. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Gracias. Thank you.
corazones. El comedor,
Corazón.
los comedores.
Los
Number 3.
comedores.
Does the word end
Okay, here is we might call this a correlate. This is like an extra thing. It is a spelling thing. And you'll encounter this from time to time when you read things, when you write things out, when you speak, it's kind of a non-issue. But if the last word is a consonant and that consonant is the letter Z, they have a spelling thing in Spanish. Z and E can never be next to each other. It's just a thing. It's a rule. It's an arbitrary rule they made up about 1,000 years ago. Okay, so why is not important. Just know that Z and E cannot be next to each other in Spanish, ever. Ever and ever and ever. Yeah, because Spanish is very phonetic. So, but it's still no problem because all that happens is you change the Z into a C and then you add ES. No biggie. And the sound is the same. It does not change the way the word sounds. It just changes the spelling. It's a spelling change, nothing more.
in Z? Change that Z for CES, like el pez.
El pez. This is a fish, but caution, cuidado, cuidado. Careful. This is a live fish swimming around. This is not the dead fish you eat on your plate, okay? El pez, el pez. El pez,
Los peces.
Los
El
peces.
lápiz. Los lápices.
okay, so Z changes to C, and then you add the ES like you would normally add the ES. That's still not so hard.
Now let's see if you and Cody got it. I'm gonna show you some words and you and Cody will give me the plural form. Are you ready? Let's get started.
Los perros.
Yes.
Perros.
Los perros.
Ooh, this one's hard. It's got a,
Yes.
it's got a seta. Yeah.
Narices.
Las narices.
Las narices.
Las narices.
Ooh, la luz, the light. La luz.
Luces.
Luces. Las luces.
Remember, this one is las luces.
Los hombres.
Los hombres.
hombres.
Los,
Las acetes.
So él is
Los.
masculino. El
La.
aceite.
Los acetes.
Remember, this one is los aceites.
Okay, los aceites. El aceite, right? So if you had a bunch of bottles maybe lined up, or different kinds of oil, olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, I don't know, say aceites, los aceites, okay? Los aceites. And whenever that noun is plural, every word that refers to that noun has to go plural. So that's going to mean the word for the, or the word for or the words that describe it with a quality. Oh, that's going to happen later on.
Los papeles.
Los papeles.
Los papeles.
Okay, los papeles, it ended in an L, we had to have an ES. Los papeles, okay. La nube, la nube. La nube, the cloud. Oh, it ends in a vowel. It ends in a vowel.
Las nubes.
Las nubes.
Las nubes.
El espejo. El espejo is a mirror, okay? El espejo ends in a vowel. This is the easy peasy one.
Los espejos.
Los espejos.
Los espejos.
El
Los
comedor,
espejos.
el comedor ends in an R. Comedor,
S.
Los comedores.
no.
Los comedores.
This one is los comedores.
Comedores, because this R is the very last letter, it's a consonant, we have to have ES, not just S.
Oh,
Okay?
okay.
Yeah, not just S, but ES. Yeah. You know, we have
Okay.
churches. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of do some similar things in English sometimes, but the last letter of the thing, the noun,
It's a
tells you.
consonant.
Yeah, it's a
Yes.
consonant. It's not A-E-I-O-U. It's not A-E-I-O-U. So yeah, ES, comedores, comedores. Árbol, árbol. Do we have an A-E-I-O-U as the last letter? It's an L.
ES.
Oles.
Yes.
Los arboles.
Los árboles. Is that right?
Los árboles.
Árboles, árboles, árboles.
Árboles.
And notice
Árboles.
this has an accent mark. It does not change the way the letter A sounds. What it means is you
Los
punch the syllable that A
árboles.
harder than the others. Like we don't say examination. Yeah, right, yeah. We have more stress on some, you know, you have to put the emphasis on the right syllable.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay,
Los
so
árboles.
árboles. The accent mark serves to tell
árboles.
you punch that sound
Árboles.
harder than
Los
all the other
árboles.
syllables. There you go.
So how did you do? Did you get them all right? Let us know in the comments below. Let's review what we learned today. Today we learned that if you want to make a word in Spanish plural, most of the time you will just have to add an S. Like in perro, perros. If the word finishes in a consonant, you will just add ES. Like in mujer, mujeres. And finally, if
Mujeres.
the word ends in Z, simply replace the Z for CES. Like in pez, peces. Don't forget to change the
Peces.
article to plural as well. Like in el espejo, los espejos.
Los.
Or like in la nube, las nubes.
Las.
That's it for today's lesson.
Okay, so that helps you. I will give you the link to that so that you can watch it once again, una vez más. Vale, vale, vale. And now we're going to address, and actually you're going to have some written homework so that you can practice that, kind of get the pattern into your head. It won't be too terribly difficult. Next, we're going to address the wonderful question we had about, wait a minute, What about gender? What about gender? ¿Dónde está? ¿Dónde está? We don't want the exceptions one. We want this one. Pardon me while I get my videos lined up here. Sure I've got the right one. Sí, correcto, correcto. Okay, we're going to move on to a different video. And this video attacks that question. We already heard this question, which was an excellent question. The question is, wait a minute, what if I want to know, that el, la, los, las, wait a minute, I also need to know gender, meaning is the noun, the person, place, or thing, masculine or feminine. This will help you. There is not a 100% way always to know the answer to that question. Sometimes you have to memorize it, but there are some clues that will sometimes help you with figuring out if a noun, a person, place, or thing is masculine or feminine. And this will give you a few clues for many of them.
Hola, bienvenidos a Hola Spanish. Soy Brenda, tu profesora de español. Today we're going to have a look at how to determine if things are masculino or femenino en español. So as you know, people and animals will have dual genders. But as you know, or as you may not know, in español, in Spanish, things will also have set genders. So for example, the table will have a set gender, it's going to be femenino, and then for example, el libro, the book, will be masculino. So things in español will have gender, and this is very important to know the gender of things because it will determine and change everything around it. So the adjective will have to match the article that goes.
So notice in Spanish, the word for the and the word for black, they're both talking about cat.
The black cat.
So every word that refers back to talking about cat has to look to that word cat and go into the right form of that word cat. A little boy cat will be gato. A little girl kitty will be gata. Okay, and this is an easy example because with animals we can sometimes tell, right? El gato negro, la gata negra. Okay, that is something English does not do at all. And it's hard for English speakers to get used to that. But poco a poco, little by little, you will need to get used to that idea. So
everything will be matching. So how do we know, how can we determine if something is masculino or femenino in Spanish? Well, we can follow a certain amount of rules, certain rules to determine if things are masculino or femenino en español. Now, be warned, there are lots of exceptions to this rule. So as you go and progress on your Spanish language learning process, you will know and be able to identify those exceptions of the rule.
So the exceptions to these rules she's going to give you are just things you learn as you go along. And you just get used to the pattern. I mean, that's kind of all you can say about that. Okay.
Generally speaking, there's certain rules that we can follow to see if things are masculino or femenino. Let's get started. Okay, start with masculino. How to determine if a word is masculino en español. So we're going to have a look at the ending of the word. If the word ends in o, it's very likely to be masculino. Por ejemplo, libro. Libro es masculino. See, we can see the O, so it's very likely to be masculine. So we're going to say el libro, see, the book. So if it ends in E, it's also very likely to be masculino as well. Por ejemplo, pasaporte. Pasaporte. If it ends in R, it's also very likely to be masculino as well. Por ejemplo, amor. Amor. So we're going to say el amor. And the last one, if a word ends in el, is very likely to be masculino as well. Por ejemplo, sol. We're going to say el sol. And there are many others examples
And sol means sun, the sun up in the sky.
as well. Let's now move to the femenino, how to determine if words are femenino en español. So if it ends in a, it's very likely to be femenino. Por ejemplo, casa. Here we're going to say la casa, the house. If the word ends in sion, with a C, we are going to also say that it's very likely to be femenino. Por example, canción, canción, la canción. If it ends in sion but with an S, also very likely to be femenino. Por ejemplo, la televisión. And the last one, if the word ends in that, is also very likely to be femenino. Por ejemplo, la ciudad. La ciudad. So it sounds like there's a lot of endings, and you're probably wondering, do I have to really study this and remember all these endings? Of course you don't, but as you study Spanish and you progress in your learning process, you're going to realize that there are a lot of words in Spanish that have these endings. So as you get more used to the language, you will start to immediately know inside. You will probably even forget about this rule, and you will instantly know if a word is masculino or femenino based on your studies and some of these endings as well. So there you have it, how to determine if a word is masculine.
Okay, so the ending of the noun, the person, place, or thing, is often a clue. There are no exceptions to this sion bab, but sometimes there are exceptions to this o and a thing, and we'll take a look at that next week. It's not important for you to memorize every exception. Just know in general, nouns that end in o, generally, most of the time, masculine. Nouns that end in a, generally, most of the time, feminine, okay? O and a, o and a. And we'll talk about exceptions to the rule later on. Bien, vale. Okay, we're coming up to close to, alguna pregunta? Any question on this as we finish up this idea? You're going to do some homework based on this to see if you can put that into practice. I will show you what it will look like. Oops. You will get a page that looks like this, and you're just going to practice nothing but make it plural. Only thing you're going to do. Okay? And it's got the little rules up in great big bold at the top. Add an S, add an ES, change the Z to C, and add ES. You're going to do that. So we're just going to practice some of this business. I'm also going to have a little page on to see if you can tell if a noun is masculine or feminine. That's going to be a separate page, okay? Not connected to that. They're just two separate things. And, you know, you're just figuring out, how do I make this plural? And, you know, is it S or ES? And then is it masculine or feminine? You got a 50-50 shot of getting it right, right? So you'll have, I will send you the links to that so you can do a little bit of practice with that. You'll have a number of little short videos to watch to kind of, you know, get the hang for some of these concepts that we're going to be talking about. And also, I want you to make sure you get up through chapter 3. Make sure you've read everything in the book.
For Monday.
For next, well, yeah, for next week.
Lunes.
Lunes, martes.
Oh, martes.
Hoy es martes.
Martes.
Hoy es martes, ¿verdad? Okay, but now, when you read through chapter 3, here's the caveat. That means the warning in Latin. Here's the caveat, here's the warning. When you look at chapter 3, it's going to have a lot about some numbers. Do not feel you must memorize every number in chapter 3 yet. What I want you to focus on, even though it does say chapter 3, kind of, get a feel for it. But don't feel like you got to memorize the numbers yet. But do start to get a feel for what I want you to focus with on chapter 3. That one chapter in particular is they're going to talk about plurals. Ooh, start to look at the ways to say I am, you are, he is, she is, they are, we are. They're all going to be different words. Okay, yeah, it's a tough thing for English speakers. Although, think about this in English, and we'll talk a little more about introducing. In English, the basic verb is to be, B-E, to be. To be or not to be, to be. But then when we change that word in English, be becomes I am. Am sure doesn't sound like be. You are does not sound like be. She is doesn't sound like be. Do you get my point? This is what we call an irregular verb. That base word of to be, it doesn't look like, no, it does not look like it. How did you get am out of be? Okay. Almost all languages, and in almost all languages, the forms of to be wind up being irregular. It happens in German, it happens in French, it happens in Spanish, it happens in English. So do know that while to be is not an action like walk, talk, run, work, it is still a verb of being. And we are going to start with that verb, the ways to say I am, you are, he is, they are, we are, how to say that. And we're going to implement that into ways to, again, introduce other people or talk about other people, to talk about what their names are, to talk about who they are. Okay. And you're going to have a whole bunch of like photo prompts in class where we'll start to combine that and use that. And I'll give you lots of examples. So you will start to be able to chime in and use it yourself after about 2 or 3 examples. Make sense?
Yes.
Sí. Fantástico, fantástico. Okay, so we're starting to combine a lot of ideas that are kind of really abstract. And for some of you that may feel a little uncomfortable, just go with it, surf the wave. That's the way it is, okay? But I will send you all the links you need so that you can look at my files, you can look at every video and check all that stuff out. Todo está bien? Everything good?
Sí.
Next week, we will not focus exclusively on the numbers yet. We will do that in the lesson afterwards. We'll start to hear them. And, you know, out here in the Southwest, people know how to count to 10 in Spanish. A lot of people already know that. So, you know, you've probably heard some of those words, or you've seen some of them even on signs, you know, or heard them being used out and about just because of where we live. So that's helpful. Okay. If you've got any questions, always feel free to email me during the week. A mí no me importa, doesn't matter to me. I'm happy with that. Y nos vemos. ¿Alguna pregunta antes de salir, before leaving our Zoom room? Any questions you've got?
No.
Muchas gracias.
De nada.
Gracias.
Fue un placer, fue un placer. Muy bien. Nos vemos hasta martes, till Tuesday, hasta martes, ¿no? Bien.
Sí, gracias.
De nada, de nada. Fue un placer. It was a pleasure.